Hello and welcome to the Lidia Sobieska Beginner's Guide. This guide is going to try to encompass every one of all skill levels if you're just picking up Lidia for the first time. Some of you who are watching might have been playing Tekken for a while and trying to learn Lidia. Some of you might be brand new to Tekken. I'm going to try to make this video in a way that everyone can understand what's going on here. So no matter who you are, no matter what skill level you are, you can get something from this video when starting to learn Lidia. So this is, of course, a very, very long video. There are timestamps that are in the description of this video. I implore you to use them instead of just going through this entire video. This video is basically 5 or 6 videos for a beginner guide on Lidia, all combined into one for your convenience. So my recommendation is to look at the timestamps, figure out what you specifically need to learn right now with how you've been playing Lidia recently, some troubles you've been having, and then go to that section to maybe try and figure that out a little bit more. Because watching through this entire video all in one sitting, you're probably not going to retain a lot of the information on it. So I highly, highly recommend you just watch portions of this video instead of watching the entire thing. Because this is a beginner's guide, I'm not going to go too in depth with the topics I'm talking about, just to try to keep it simple for you all, because I'm assuming you're all just trying to pick up and play the character. If you want to see more in-depth guides on Lidia, intermediate and higher level, please check out my YouTube channel. I have a bunch of guides on how to play Lidia that go a lot more in detail and specific things than this video will. Also, if you're looking for high-level Lidia gameplay or you just want to ask some questions, feel free to check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Sesujin. We're not very competitive there. We're very laid back. We're casual. We're friendly. If you have any questions, want to come in and just say hi, or just enjoy some Lidia gameplay, please feel free to stop in. So let's start with some basic things. Let's start with combos. So I'm going to show you the advanced combo with Lidia first, so you can get an idea of what that looks like. And then I'm going to break it down and give you a simpler one to start out with, and then tell you how to branch off later into the bigger combo. So the advanced combo for Lidia is going to look something like this. So that's going to give you 83 damage and a lot of wall carry. So let's break down that first combo. So it's going to start with a 3-2. Now the 3-2, there's a blue spark version and a non-blue spark version. What does blue spark mean? It means that you're just hitting the second button at the right time. So I do 3-2 here. If I hit the 2 within a 3-frame window, I believe it is, then it'll give me a little bit extra damage. You don't have to worry about that too much. Then what I'm doing is I'm manually going into wolf stance here. So I'm pressing back 3+4 forward to go in the wolf stance, and then I'm pressing 2. Now, the problem with doing this, if you're brand new, and why this might be hard, is because then you want to do it into a forward 2. This is a link. You can't buffer forward inputs in this game, and that's probably going to make it a bit harder. So what you can do instead is skip the wolf 2 input and just do this. And that's still going to give you a serviceable 74 damage. It is going to reduce your damage a bit, but it's going to make the combo quite a bit easier. After the forward 2 into horse 2, we do core circle forward 1 + 2, 2. That's going to be our screw. And then our ender is going to be double core circle forward 2, 2, back forward 1 + 2. It's quite a complicated input. It might be a little bit too much to start out with. So instead of doing that, you can do this instead. And that's still going to give you 71 damage. So instead of doing that double core circle forward 2, 2, back forward 1 + 2, instead we're doing back 3, 4 core circle forward 1 + 2. There are a couple of core circle forward inputs in here, but with a little bit of time, they should be fairly easy to execute. If you want to just not do any core circle motions at all, maybe you are newer to fighting games and those are harder for you, this would be the combo I recommend. So that's going to do a lot less at 63, but it's going to be your basic combo structure, and it's going to be very easy to build off of. The first thing that you want to do is learn that core circle forward at the end of the combo of the back 3, 4, 1 plus 2, that's going to give you a little bit extra damage. Then instead of what we do for the screw here, which is down forward, forward 2, you instead want to learn that core circle forward 1 plus 2, 2. That's going to make it easier to hit the ender, and it's going to do a little bit more damage. And then from there, you will be able to learn how to do that wolf 2 into the link in the forward, forward 2, horse 2. And then you're going to have basically the full combo at that point. Now, in terms of utilizing Heat Burst inside of that combo, you're basically going to be doing it after the screw. So it's going to look something like this for the more advanced version. And the reason why we're doing that Heat Burst in the middle of the combo is to give us a little bit more wall carry to be able to connect to the wall. At the wall, the most reliable wall ender is going to be Political Storm, which is going to be 4, 1 plus 2, 3, 1 plus 2. Core Circle 4, 1 plus 2 at the end instead of just 1 plus 2 to be able to power up and get a little bit more damage. So for the simple version, it's going to be fairly similar. It's just going to look more like this. Now, you're going to notice when we do the simpler version, there's not going to be nearly as much wall carry, and that's why learning the more advanced version of this combo is going to help you out quite a bit. In terms of wall carry for your combo, you have two options mainly. You have 1, 2, 3, and you have what I showed earlier, back 3, 4, 1 plus 2. Both of these are going to do quite a good job of being able to convert to the wall in a combo. So at the wall, the combo is going to be pretty simple. We'll just use Wall Rising 2 here as an example. But what you want to do is you want to do Core Circle 4, 1 plus 2, 2, then press back, then just do Political Storm. It's going to be the most reliable ender at the wall. It's going to look something like this. That's going to give you a decent 55 damage. Now, if you don't want to do the core circle forward motions, then you can instead do the down forward forward 2. That's going to be fairly reliable in this situation. Again, it would look something like this. It's going to give you a little bit less damage, but it's going to be a little bit easier. When you do the core circle forward 1 plus 2, 2 though, you have to make sure that you're holding back to cancel stance. Otherwise, you're going to get something like this if you try just doing Political Storm, which is going to significantly hinder your damage. Now, off of Hopkick, the rules are going to be a little bit different. So again, I'll show you the optimal combo, and then I'll show you the easier combo. So that's going to give you a nice 64 damage. What we're doing here after the Hopkick, we're doing Wall Running 2 into Horse 2, and then double Core Circle forward 2, 2, back forward, forward 1 plus 2. If you want something significantly easier, you can do this instead. That'll do 53 damage. That's going to require you to do a Core Circle forward 2 in there, but that's going to be the best easy way to be able to get a combo out of Hopkick. Now, the rules change a bit when you're off axis. If you sidestep a move and then do a Hopkick and you try doing this into the 2, sometimes the 2 will drop. This is completely random. There's no rhyme or reason behind this, and I'm almost certain that this is going to get changed in some future patch, so if you're watching this in a year, this might not be relevant at all. But for right now, if you do Hopkick at an off-axis angle, then the 2 after the forward 2 might just whiff. It's also character dependent, so what I recommend if you're off-axis and you do Hopkick is you do this combo instead. That's going to be a fairly consistent way to be able to get damage in. It's going to do significantly less damage, but again, it's very, very inconsistent actually being able to hit the opponent off axis. And there are also going to be some instances where you might do Hopkick as a punish, minus 15 punish, but the opponent will be off axis just because of the angle of how the move travels them, and that will also cause the combo, the normal brand bar combo to drop. So you have to be a little bit careful while you're figuring out those angles. I really recommend just going for the easy combo when you're starting out to make sure you don't drop anything, because like I said, it can be very finicky. Now with combos out of the way, let's talk about Lidia's punishers. So her punishers are 1, 2, 2. This is going to be her 10 frame punish, puts at +8 on hit. Now, one thing that you have to be very careful of, which I'm going to talk about now, is that the frame data on these moves lies. So you're going to see that if I do 1, 2, 2, it's going to say it's -8. Now, for those of you who have played Tekken before, you're going to see that and know it's safe. For those of you who haven't played Tekken before, -8 is safe. If you come from fighting games, -8 looks very punishable. In Tekken, it is safe. There's no move in the game that can punish at -8. Punishment starts at -10. You become launch punishable at -14 or 15. It depends on the character. So -8 appears safe, but Lidia automatically goes into stance after doing these moves, and she takes 9 frames to be able to exit the stance. So if you hold back after doing this, she will exit the stance on frame 9, which means that for 8 additional frames than what it's saying here at -8, you are vulnerable to being hit. Now, you do have moves after this because you transition into the stance, but they're not fast enough to actually be able to avoid the punish, because the fastest move you have in this stance is 13 frames. So what that means is if you do 1, 2, 2 and it's blocked, it's not -8, it's -16, which means it's launch punishable. It's a very important thing to keep in mind when looking at Lidia's moves. It's going to be the same with Hopkick. It says it's -5, but because it takes 9 frames for her to be able to exit the stance, you need to subtract another 8 from that, and it becomes -13, which is punishable like most Hopkicks. So you have to be wary about just throwing 1, 2, 2 out. You want to reserve it more for a punish. You can hit confirm 1, 2, 2 when you throw out 1, 2 by listening if the opponent makes a sound that where you know they've hit a button, or just looking to see if your opponent does an animation. You can't just hit confirm it by seeing it visually get hit. You have to see if visually the opponent has done something where you know that you've hit them. It's very tricky to do. I don't recommend doing it. I recommend that if you're going to do a poke, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, you do 2, 4 instead, at least for now. But so this is a move that's exclusively reserved as a punish, 1, 2, 2. Now, the quirks behind this move, it's +8 goes into stance. So if the opponent tries to do anything, then what you can do is 3 afterwards, and that will give you a heat engager. And we'll talk about the stances a little bit more in depth in a second. But because this is so important, because it's the follow-up, I'm going to talk about it now. So the mid-low that you have here is you have 4 for the low, which is also a counter-hit launcher, and we can demonstrate the combo here real quick. You're going to notice, and this is why I showed the more advanced combo before, that the combo structure there is very similar to your normal starter off of 3, 2. If you want a more simple combo, you can do this instead. So instead of doing those quarter circle forward inputs, we're doing back 2, 3 to keep them in the air, and then down forward 4, 2, which was the screw from before, and then the same enders before, back 3, 4, 1 + 2. Now, the mid that you're going to have out of stance is going to be 1. The tricky thing, though, about 1, 2, 2 is if you throw out the mid, even if this hits, the opponent can armor through the mid, as I will demonstrate here. So this creates a fairly poor situation where you do get a mix-up on the opponent, but the opponent can also respond to your mix-up. Now, the best way to avoid this is, again, the 3. The 3 will go through everything, and the 4 will counter-hit launch them, as we said before. That's why I brought it up. But you have to be very careful in throwing out the mid, because the opponent does have ways to be able to respond to the mid. An astute opponent is also going to be able to sidestep this move, and you have to be really careful about that. Now, moving on to the next punish is 2, 2. You're going to go into the same stance after this on hit or block, which is going to be cat stance. The mix-up, though, is a bit better because after 2, 2 hits, you're +11 instead of +8, which means they cannot armor through your 1. As I'll demonstrate here, I have the opponent set to unmove after I do an attack. I will do 2, 2, and then the 1, and you can see that the 1 will actually counter hit them, and on counter hit, it knocks them down and gives you a guaranteed forward 1 + 2 afterwards for a mini combo. So after your 2, 2 punish, which again is your 11 frame punish, you do get a free mix-up from Cat. Again, that's going to consist of 1 for the mid and 4 for the low. One thing to keep in mind as well when doing this low is that it's -6 on block. Apply the same logic from before. This is -14 on block. A lot of opponents will try launch punishing you because a lot of Lidia players like to just attack after this move either hits or blocks, and depending on your skill level, you might have opponents that get scared and don't do anything after. You might have opponents that start hitting buttons. You have to be able to visually confirm if this move hits or is blocked and then continue from there. You have to be able to visualize if the move hits and continue your pressure then, and you have to be able to visualize if it's blocked and then not continue in Wolf and just press the back button so that you don't get launch punished. Something to be very, very careful and mindful of. So one thing to point out is that 2-2 does wall splat. It is an 11 frame wall splatting punish. So very simple combo that you can do here. 2-2 in the cat, 2-2, and then that political storm that we talked about earlier, and that's going to do a good chunk of damage. One thing that's important to point out about 2-2 before we move on is that 2-2 is -4 on block. Again, take the same logic from before, and that makes this move -12 on block, which means that this is punishable. And yes, it is a hide that they can duck under. It does not jail. So you have to be really careful when throwing out this move. If the opponent doesn't duck it, then you still get punished. If the opponent is astute and ducks under this move, if you just throw it out in neutral, then you can get launch punished. If the opponent doesn't duck it but blocks it, you are still getting punished, and you are not getting a free mix-up for just throwing this move out in neutral. So most of the time, this is going to be reserved as a move for a punish only. Now, moving on to 12 frame, you don't have to actually worry about her 12 and 13 frame punish. Her 12 frame punish is going to be 4-2-4. This, in my opinion, is, and I believe a lot of Lidia players' opinion, is worse than 2-2. You're sacrificing 5 damage, but you get a better mix-up and better positioning off of doing the 2-2 as a punish for 12 frames instead of the optimal punish, which is 4-2-4. There are a couple of instances where 2-4 is going to reach as a 12 frame punish and 2-2 won't. Again, it's rare. It's some instances. If you notice a situation where the opponent is -12 and 2-2 doesn't reach, then 4-2-4 is probably going to be a move that you have to use. The other use case is if the opponent's right side is to the wall, then as you can visually see, 4-2-4 does wall splat. So that's going to be an instance where that's going to wall splat over 2-2. But in my many, many hours of playing Lidia, this situation has probably come up. In my head, it's come up twice where this has actually been a bad punish over 2-2 because of a wall splat situation. So it's not even worth considering. Keep it simple. If the opponent's -12, just do 2-2. It's a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier to remember. And it's the same with the 13 frame punish. 2-2 is actually better than any 13 frame punish that Lidia has. The closest she probably has is back 2-3. This is going to do slightly more damage with the blue spot at 31 and leave her +6 in standing to give her like a hell sweep mix up, but it's not that much better. In fact, I wouldn't say it's better at all compared to 2-2, so I would just stick to 2-2. For 14 frame punish, you have Political Storm. That's 4, 1 + 2, 3, and then 1 + 2. This move is always referred to Political Storm just because the notation is very wordy and takes too long to say, and Tekken players are lazy. So we just call it Political Storm, which is the name of the move. 4, 1 + 2, 3, 1 + 2. What you can also do to give yourself a little bit more damage on this move is do Core Circle forward 1 + 2 at the end. Give you slightly more damage there. This is also a heat engager, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And we'll talk a little bit more about the versatility of this move because this move comes out a lot more often than just being a punisher. And then finally, your 15 frame punish. You have 3-2 and you have Hopkick. Personally, I just do Hopkick. A lot of people wouldn't agree with that because you get a lot more damage out of 3-2, which we showed in the combo section before. But I just go with Hopkick because it's safer, and if I screw up my punish, then I prefer to not die because 3-2 is a high. That's personal preference. You should probably learn to do 3-2 as your 15 frame punish because it's less finicky than Hopkick is, and it just gives you more damage than Hopkick does. So for While Rising punishment, you have for 11 frames While Rising 4-2. This is going to put you in the same situation as 1-2-2, so you have to be careful of that. Same frames and everything. For 12, you have From Crouch down 4-2, which is a heat engager, very strong, but -14 on block, so be very careful if you're just throwing this out. For 13 frames, you have while rising 1-2, and this is going to put you in the same situation as 2-2. Makes it very easy to remember what you get after this when you're in your stance. You can also, if the opponent's at the wall here, do while rising 1-4, and then we're going to kind of get the same combo as before. And again, to make this a little bit easier, you can also do this. Move the down forward 4-2 instead of as the screw, instead of course circle 4-1 plus 2-2. For 14 frames, you have while rising 3, which is minus 12 on block. So again, be careful if you're just throwing it out. You get a guaranteed forward 4-1 plus 2 afterwards. And then for 15 frames, you have while rising 2. And the combo after this is going to be pretty similar to the rest of them, except you're not going to be able to get that wolf out of here. So you can either do forward 4-2 here, and then of course circle 4-1 plus 2-2, or you can do forward 4-2, and to simplify that course circle forward input, you can do down forward 4-2. Or to simplify it a little bit further, after this you can do back 2-3 into down forward 4-2, and then the same enter as before, that back 3-4 course circle 4-1 plus 2 for the boost block, or just 1 plus 2 if you don't want to bother with the course circle forward input, and that will look something like this. And now let's talk a little bit about Lidia's key moves. So the first one we're going to talk about is just 1-2. Not every character has a 1-2, and that's why I want to talk about it a little bit in case you play a character that doesn't have a 1-2 or you don't know why the 1-2 is so powerful. So 1-2 is going to be plus 4 on hit, minus 3 on block. And if you catch the opponent hitting a button, then you get that 1-2-2, right? You have to be careful because this is launch punishable. But if the opponent is, like, say, out here, and you notice them throwing out a move, and you do that 1-2, you can hit confirm this move. It's hard to hit confirm the 1-2-2, but you can do it. The other nice thing about this move is you have 1-2-4. This is a little bit risky because it can get low parried, but if the opponent is trying to take their turn after the 1-2 here at minus 3, you can do 1-2-4, and on counter hit, the 1-2-4 will knock them down and give you a down 1 plus 2 guaranteed. For something a little bit easier, you can instead do forward 3. Okay, well, maybe it's not a little bit easier for me because I don't do this, but you can do forward 3 for 34 damage and knock them quite a distance away. But 1-2 is going to be basically your best 10-frame jab poke. Good move to just throw on neutral, keep the pressure going. And if they're scared of the follow-up, the 1-2-4, then even though this is minus 3 on block, this is going to open up opportunities for you to be able to use other moves. Next move we'll talk about real quick for key moves is 2-4. So 2-4 is not a move I use very often because I just do 1-2 and then hit confirm the 2 here when I throw it out. But a lot of people swear by 2-4 because this is a 11 frame high mid, plus 4 on hit, and on block this is minus 8, so it's safe and it leaves you at a distance where you can kind of backdash away from the opponent. I don't believe it has as much versatility as 1-2, but a lot of people like this move, and for a quick high mid natural poke that's going to leave you in an advantageous situation on hit, 21 damage, again, plus 4, gives you a little bit of room to be able to mix up the opponent. It's quite good for that. So as a beginner new to Lidia, I recommend trying this move out, give it a little bit of a look, and see if it fits how you like to play Lidia. Now, next key move we're going to talk about is Political Storm. Again, 4-1 plus 2, 3-1 plus 2. This is one of Lidia's heat engagers, and it's a very powerful one at that. Not only is this your 14-frame punish, but this is very good for controlling space out here. One thing that you might struggle at with Lidia is figuring out how to play Lidia out here, because she seems like a very aggressive character. Get in the opponent's face, forward 4-2, for some sort of mix-up, go in the stance, and you might be a little bit lost if you're out here because the moves that she has out here aren't very good, especially compared to some other characters. She doesn't have very good longer range get-in tools like forward 2, doesn't have a ton of range. You'd have to run it into the opponent in order to get this to hit. She's very vulnerable to sidestep, so if the opponent sidesteps right here, then they'll be able to avoid that. You're running 1, which doesn't really give you a whole lot on block, same with running 3. And even on hit, these moves don't do a lot. So how do you control space out here? And that's why Political Storm is a key move with Lidia. What you're looking for with Lidia out at this range is not necessarily to approach the opponent but to catch the opponent trying to approach you, because the opponent also wants to try getting in your face and forcing mix-ups and forcing aggression. Political Storm is one of the best tools in the game to be able to counteract that, because from this range, when Lidia does this move, she just becomes a bulldozer that covers the entire screen. Even out here, and even though I don't recommend this, if I do the full string of Political Storm, it will still hit the opponent at the end. If I'm out here, the last hit will hit the opponent at the end. So when you do this move, you become a moving projectile. Throwing out this move at this range is going to heavily dissuade the opponent from wanting to approach you. And Lidia going into heat is very, very powerful. Going into heat with Lidia can win you the entire round on the spot. Lidia getting a heat engager is more powerful than pretty much any character in the game. Lydia is just that strong in heat. So the threat of getting hit by a heat engager is greater when the opponent is playing against Lidia than most other characters, if not every other character in the game. Maybe Heihachi will be an exception when that comes out, but for now, it's going to be Lidia. One thing to be wary of with Political Storm, though, when throwing it out, is it is not safe by any means. The last hit is minus 15 on block, which might make you think that this move isn't very good. And you would be right, and maybe in the future they're going to nerf this move to a point where it is maybe not nearly as usable. But the nice thing about Political Storm is that you can actually hit confirm it, and you can hit confirm it from the 3 input, which is technically the third hit here, the knee, which is only minus 13. And while that doesn't seem great, if you're using this in the right situations, if you're using it sparingly, you're waiting for the opponent to come to you, you know the opponent's going to want to do a running move, they're going to want to try to approach you, and you're throwing this out at those times to dissuade that, then the minus 13 isn't as bad for the reward that you get for catching out the opponent. Again, hitting Political Storm can just win you the entire round with Lidia, especially when you get better with the character and you get more comfortable with how she works in heat. So how do you hit confirm Political Storm? Well, what you're looking for is this first hit to hit the opponent. So if I do 4, 1 plus 2, 3, I have enough time to be able to input that last 1 plus 2 when the first 1 plus 2 hits. So when you throw out Political Storm, you always throw out 4, 1 plus 2, 3. Always. And then from there, you'll see that this first hit has hit the opponent. And then you can see just how late I hit that 1 plus 2 to be able to get the last hit to come out. I'll show you again. I'm going to hit the 1 plus 2 button after I visually confirm that the first 1 plus 2 hits the opponent. Again, you can see just how much time I have after hitting that 3 to hit the 1 plus 2. And just to further demonstrate this, I'm going to have the opponent set on random block, so it's going to be random whether they block or not, as you can see, and I will show you what hit confirming this move looks like. So I really recommend practicing that. It's a very, very good neutral tool. It's a good keep out tool. It's one of the best neutral tools in the game, and it's how Lidia controls space, and she's able to still control the match even out at this range that seems suboptimal for her. Down forward 1, you know, generic 13 frame mid, but what's important about down forward 1 is it tracks to a weak side. So Lydia's weak side is sidestep right. A lot of people say that it's sidestep left because there was a chart floating around Reddit that cited she was sidestep left. That was her weak side. Her weak side is not sidestep left, it's sidestep right. And a lot of moves lose to sidestep right. Pretty much every key move that Lidia has loses to sidestep right. Political Storm will lose to sidestep right, which we just talked about. 1-2 can lose to sidestep right. Back 1 loses to sidestep right. Forward 4-2 loses to sidestep right. But she has a couple of non-homing moves that do track to this weak side. Down forward 1 is one of those moves, and this one of the reasons why it's such a good thing to throw out. If the opponent is sidestepping a lot, it's going to seem really difficult to be able to stop them from sidestepping. Down forward 1 is going to be your best mid that tracks to her weak side. And it's not even close. You should be throwing this move out when the opponent's sidestepping, because if the opponent step rights and ducks, then your homing moves like back 4, for instance, are going to whiff and you're going to get punished, potentially launched for doing that. That's why down forward 1 is so important. One thing to keep in mind though is that down forward 1, 2 here, if the opponent sidesteps right, can whiff in some instances when they sidestep right, so you have to be careful in throwing this out. It also is a duckable high that can get you launched, so you have to be careful of that. Down forward 1, 3 is also another move that I don't use too often, but can be good for the opponent hitting buttons. The second hit is a counter hit launcher, and we're just going to do the same combos that we've done before. So again, easy combo here. And then you can also do the advanced combo like before. But down forward 1, 3 is going to be good for catching the opponents who are trying to hit buttons after you're down forward 1, who are being aggressive, and it's natural on counter hit. The caveat though is that it is minus 13 on block, so you do get punished pretty hard for throwing it out, but the reward you get if you're using it in the right situations makes it quite good. Down forward 2 is another key move with Lidia. This is going to be one of the few moves that transitions into stance that is safe on block at 0. And there is a whole theory behind how this move works, but basically how it works is you're 0 on block. The fastest move that you have is 13 frames. So if the opponent does a 12 frame move or faster, most of the time that's going to be a jab after this move is blocked. It's going to be any option that you have. Some exceptions, for example, the 4 out of cat stance will duck under Kazuya's 1-1. Don't ask me why. Other characters, the 1-1 will hit Lidia before she can crush the high. I don't know why that's the case. That's just how it is. Again, something that might be changed in a future patch. I don't know. But let's just say for now, just to keep everything simple, that a 10-frame move is going to be everything that you have in cat stance. And we're assuming that because for some characters, it just does, some characters it doesn't. So we just wanted to keep it very simple and easy to understand. But if the opponent is trying to take their turn after the down forward 2 because you're holding block to try blocking the jab because you don't want to get hit, that's when you can start using cat 3. Now, as you can see, cat 3 does lose to sidestep right, and of course, they can get ducked. But I'm going to stop a recording here where I'm going to have the opponent do something that's very normal for someone to do. They're going to block down forward 2, and then they're going to try forcing a low on you that's 16 frames. If I do down forward 2 and I press 3, then that's going to beat it, and it's going to give me a heat engager. Now, you have to be very careful, though, when trying to force a mix-up here, because if I hit 1, for example, that's a 17-frame move, so I do get counter hit. You have to be very, very careful if you're trying to force a mix-up here on block. But if the opponent is constantly holding back after they block this move, then you have free reign almost to force that mix-up. But again, you're very open to getting launched there. You have to be very careful of that. Now, on hit, this move is going to give you plus 11, and as we talked about with 2-2 in the punishment section of this video, plus 11 is going to give you free reign to do a mix-up. They can't armor through the mix-up, so you get the option between doing the 1 and doing the 4. Again, the 4 is going to be minus 14 on block. Be very careful of that, and don't force a mix-up out of Wolf after this is blocked, or else you get launched, because a lot of people like trying to launch punish that, because a lot of people think that's launch punishable even in God ranks. So if you're at lower ranks, if you're beginning with Lidia and your max rank is Sesujin, which is what I assume your max rank is going to be because you're new with the character, I would assume that there are even more people that are trying to launch punish that on block, or punish it with maybe a Wild Rising 4. But either way, just make sure that you're holding back if that gets blocked. Right, next is down 2. So down 2 looks like a very bad low. It's 18 frames, it's minus 4, and it's minus 14 on block. The key for this, though, is that on counter hit, it gives you from crouch down forward 2 guaranteed, which is another heat engager. And it's also something that we talked about in the punishment section of the video. So down 2 is very good for crushing highs. So just to set up an example for you here, I have the opponent set to jab after I do an action. So let's just say I do down forward 4, which is minus 4 on block. I can down forward 4, they jab, I do down 2, and it evades the jab. If I do something that's plus, like let's say I do back 2 and they want to try to jab interrupt my pressure, down 2 is going to be a nice counter hit option if they're committing to a jab. Now, if they do one jab, it's not going to counter hit here, but if they do like a 1-2 or some sort of high, then it is going to counter hit them, and that's going to give you a full heat engager, which, as we've talked about before, is very, very powerful for Lidia. Hitting heat engages with Lidia is probably more influential in the direction of the round than any other character in the game. So a couple of instances where you'll be using this move, pretty much as I mentioned, like after a back 2, then you'll do it to crush highs. You might also want to run up on the opponent and then do down 2. Say you're out here and you want to get in on the opponent, you can run in, do down 2, because a lot of people at this range, when they see you come in, will want to try to jab check you. So you can run in, down 2 to try countering the jab check. And that's going to be another good way to fish for a counter hit on the opponent with this move, even if you're out here. Using it just as a low poke is also decent, because even though it's -4, a lot of people are wary to take the turn against Lidia, because from crouching, she can still sidestep into the background. So let's say that the opponent here, the Lidia, does forward 2. I do down 2, and then I sidestep from crouch, and I can still evade her move, right? So even though we're -4, we still have enough frames to be able to maneuver, and that's going to maybe make people a little bit wary of attacking, even though they are +4. And if they are wary of attacking, that's going to give us opportunities to be able to force some sort of mix-up here from crouch, right? We can do from crouch down forward 3. We could just do a simple while rising 1. We could do like while rising 4. We can sidestep to cancel our crouching animation and then force maybe down back 3 from standing, right? So that would look something like this, or maybe a back 1, or maybe we just do it again, right? To try avoiding a high if they are delaying their high, to try catching us doing exactly what I talked about. We have quite a few options from it, even though it's -4. So while generically it's not a good low because it doesn't give us a free mix-up, it still gives us enough opportunity to be able to create a way to weave another mix-up in there and to be able to continue our turn despite the minus frames. Down 3-1 is a move that a lot of Lidia players swear by, which I don't. So this move is going to be effectively -3 on block the second it isn't guaranteed. But unlike a lot of moves like this, the opponent can't crouch the second hit on hit. One thing to be worried though is that this move can be launch punished if they block it, which for some characters it doesn't matter with Lidia because all of her lows are at least -14, so it doesn't matter in some instances, but in some instances it does. One thing that you can do with this move is you can counter hit confirm it, and that's going to give you 38 damage, and at the wall it's going to give you a lot more. It'll look something like this. Sorry, let me retry that here because I got the wrong input. It's going to look something like this. I mean, 75 damage off for counter hit low, 15 frames at the wall is really, really good. But it's not a move I personally use, but a lot of Lidia plays like it. You just have to make sure when you do the last hit, which is the 2, that you're counter hit confirming it. Because this last hit, if the opponent even gets hit by the first hit, they can crouch under and then launch punish you for, as we'll see here. So you have to be very careful of that. Down back 3. Down back 3 is going to be your key low. That's going to force a mix-up. +7 on hit goes in the horse stance. We'll talk a little bit about the stances later. But that +7 on hit is going to allow you to enforce mix-ups out of the stance, including your 2, which is 16 frames, so the opponent can't even jab interrupt it, and it's going to put you into heat. Also, on counter hit, it's going to knock the opponent down and give you 41 damage, but you have to be careful following up after this because you are -10. A mid wake-up kick will be every option that Lidia has pretty much, so you have to be wary of the opponent retaliating after this move hits, but on counter hit, it still gives you quite a bit of damage. Oh yeah, did I mention it's homing as well? So this is really good for tracking the opponent's sidestep. Back 1 is going to be your big plus on block heat engager. The range on this is not stellar. As you can see, it's hitting at about range 2 here, a little bit 2.5. but if we go even a little bit past 2.5, it's going to whiff. So this is a move that can very easily be backdashed out. If it's also linear, it can be sidestepped right, but it's going to be a very strong heat engager. It leaves you at +2. This is going to allow you to do small frame traps, like you can do this into 1-2, you can do this into 2-4, and the opponent can't hit a button into this or else they'll get hit. You can also, as we talked about before, do down 2 if the opponent tries jab checking to get counter hit down 2 into a heat engager from your from crouch down 4-2 guaranteed follow-up. And if the opponent is being cautious after this back 2 is blocked because they don't want to get counter hit by anything, then that again gives you opportunity to be able to continue your turn with stuff like down back 3 and such. So it's a very, very all-around good mid to just throw out, and the heat engager makes it all the better. Back 3. So back 3 is going to be a nice little keep out tool from about this range, -7 on block. It's going to give you a natural follow-up with back 3-4 1+2 or core circle forward 1+2, which is 45-46 damage, quite nice. Also at the wall splats, and gives you some good Oki. Now, the problem with this is that the last hit here is launch punishable, but the last hit is also hit confirmable. You can see that I don't have quite that much time to be able to hit confirm it, but I do have a lot of time to be able to hit confirm it, so you can throw out back 3-4 and just wait it out and see if it hits or not, and then go from there. Keep in mind though that back 3-4 is -11 on block, so you could still get punished with even if they don't duck it. But if they are ducking it, then you can also do back 3-1, which is going to be a mid. Leaves you +5 on hit. Again, whole string is natural, 26 damage. It's a nice move, safer than Political Storm for about out here to keep the opponent away from you, keep them from attacking into you, from running in your face. It's just an all-around good keep out move. And if you whiff the first hit, like say out here, you do the second hit, and they try whiff punishing it, then on counter hit, this is going to be +14 and give you Political Storm guaranteed. Back 4. Back 4 is going to be sort of your key homing move. Now, you have other moves that are going to track sidestep, and personally, I don't use back 4 that much because the range on it is, yeah, but this is really Lydia's only usable homing move. And it, for what it's worth, it is good. 16 frames, +6 on hit, -3 on block. On counter hit, knocks down for an easy 4-4-3 guaranteed, or if you're feeling a little bit spicy, run up down 1+2, which is going to do more damage, especially if you have 3 stacks. But again, because of the abysmal range on it, it's not great. If you notice the opponent sidestepping a lot though, then this can be a good move to stop that. Back 1+2 is going to be your armor move. It's not great, 20 frames, -13 on block, but it's what you got. Forward 4-2. Now this is going to be sort of the star of the show. Forward 4-2, +5 on block puts you in horse stance. The horse mix-up after this is far too complicated to explain in this video. I have another video talking about that if you want to check it out. But basically what's happening here after forward 4-2, you have a few key options, right? You have one which is going to catch the opponent either sidestepping or jabbing. You have 3 if the opponent is crouching or doing a crouch or sidestep, excuse me. 3 is also just going to be your main tool for catching the opponent's down jabbing like this. You have the 1+2, which is going to be a low, but it's going to be more for counter hit for the opponent trying the jabbing, as we demonstrate with the back 2 into down 2 option. If the opponent is doing like a 1-2 jab after this, 1+2 will counter hit them, and on counter hit, this is a launcher. Just going to give you a combo that looks something like this. And again, if you want an easy combo, then I recommend this. For 53, that's going to be just fine for your purposes when you're starting out, if you don't want to do the whole double core circle forward thing. And then the 4 after this is going to just catch the opponent if they're being very defensive and you want a bigger mix-up from Wolf. Running 1 is going to be your fastest tool to be able to get in from long range. It's +6 on block, and +6 is sort of the magic number for Lidia because her main counter hit options that are both mid and low are 15 frames and 16 frames. So being +6 means that you get effectively a frame trap mix-up when this is blocked. The running 1 is a little bit special, however, because the opponent can backdash out of down back 3. As demonstrated here. So it's not quite a real frame trap. In this case, a better option is going to be down 3-1. And then as I said before, you can counter hit confirm that, or even a down 2 is going to catch the opponent backdashing. So again, if they try to jab out of it, then you get counter hit there. Now, the opponent can't backdash out of it if you do running 3, and that's sort of the purpose here, is that if you do running 3 and they block it, they're close enough because of the lack of pushback where you are going to get an actual mid-low mix-up out of it that's also a frame trap. So that's where running 3 comes into play as a little bit better in some instances than running 1. Also, a neat little thing that you can use in your repertoire is if the opponent jabs when you do down back 3 when you're +6. So we do running 3 here and then the opponent jabs. Let's say we do down back 3 and it trades. You're +14 and get political storm guaranteed and 67 damage. That's what makes doing down back 3 as a frame trap quite good. Now, if they do down jab, however, when you do this, then you don't get political storm guaranteed, so you have to be very careful. You're only +9 if they do down jab. Why that's the case, I don't know. I don't know why you have to look for that, but just be careful with that. If they jab, though, you're getting a lot of damage on that trade. And that's going to about do it for Lidia's key moves. So let's talk a little bit about her stances. First off, all of the stances that we go into here, we're going to be going off of moves. So like down forward 2, for instance, will put us in cat stance. Forward 2 is going to put us in horse stance. Now, the only move Lidia has in neutral that puts her into wolf stance is core circle forward 1+2/2. This move is -14. It's not a move that is thrown out very often. We're not even going to talk about, which is going to assume that you have to transition into wolf stance from either horse or cat stance, which is done by being in either stance and just pressing the forward button. There are also some moves in the stances that are going to transition into wolf. These are going to be both out of the forward button. You also have cat 1+2, but we won't talk about this move because it's not very good. So you have horse 4 to be able to transition the wolf, and cat 4, which also transitions into wolf. Now, in terms of what you can do in each stance, for cat stance, there's 3 main things that you do. You have the 1, which is going to be your mid, you have the 4 that's going to be your low, and you have the 3, which is going to catch the opponent hitting buttons if you do say 1-2-2 as a punish, because 3 is going to be fast enough to catch any option they can do, including an armor move, and it's going to give you a heat engager. The 1 mid on counter hit will give you a guaranteed forward 1+2, and as we talked about a little bit earlier, the cat 4 on counter hit will give you a full combo here. Again, here's just a simple combo to give you an idea, and then the more in-depth combo is going to look something like this. And that's basically it for cat stance. The odd thing is that cat 4 on hit is going to put you in wolf stance, and we'll talk about wolf stance in a little bit. So when it comes to horse stance is a lot more complicated, and it's very hard to break down everything. Basically, a horse stance, you have an option for how the opponent responds to the horse stance, because the moves that you have that go in the horse stance are going to be plus on block if you can even do anything. Forward 2 is plus on block, and down back 3 is assume that you hit, because if it doesn't, then it's launch punishable anyway, so you don't get anything out of it anyway. So the opponent, if they're looking to contest the stance, is going to do like maybe a jab, a down jab, armor move, and the moves that you have out of horse stance are going to try to counteract that. I have an entire video talking about the dynamic behind horse stance for a more in-depth explanation. It's not something we can really talk about in this video. To give you a basic synopsis on how this works, you're going to have either 3 or 2 as your mids here. The 3 is going to knock down a normal hit and give you forward 1+2 guaranteed. The 3 is also going to track, and it's going to be jumping, so it's good for getting around down jab, which you'll see a lot. You'll see a lot of people down jabbing, because the only way to actually get around down jab with Lidia in horse stance is the 3. There's only one option to avoid it besides just blocking. So it's going to be very useful for you to use that in those situations and to just know that you can use it. The 1 is going to be used as your high option to track sidestep and to hit the opponent when they're jabbing you. Now, something that's important to keep in mind here, though, is that if this is blocked, it's only +1. Your fastest move out of wolf stance is 15 frames, which means if they do a 13 frame or faster move, they will hit you every single time. So you can't just force a mix-up after the horse 1. You have to block. A lot of Lidia plays, especially new ones, love to try forcing a mix-up out of there because they see that they're +1, but you're not really plus. You're actually, like, effectively -7. The 1+2 is going to be your low option, animation, it's -1 launch, punch, bomb, block. But as we talked about before, on counter hit, it's going to give you this big counter hit launcher, and that's going to stop the opponent from like jab checking you with 1-2s and stuff, because then they're opening themselves up to counter hit. Or if they're doing arm move, it also is going to beat that. And then finally, the 4 is pretty much exclusively used for opponents that are very turtly, that are just stand blocking or even crouch blocking, like not being like jabbing, not sidestepping, not doing any of that stuff. If they're just holding the back button, then that's sort of what the 4 is for, to allow you a wolf mix-up. And then finally, wolf, you have wolf 4. You have wolf 2. This is going to be your basic low mid mix-up. The wolf 4 is going to be launch, punch, bomb, block, so you gotta be careful of that. And then you have the wolf 1, which can be charged. Uncharged, it's +2. Charged, it's +7. You have to be careful of this though, because the opponent can sidestep the 1 if they block horse 4. Now, if they get hit by wolf 4, then they can still sidestep it, but they have to sidestep it right specifically. So if they're on player 2 side, they can sidestep it. If they're on player 1 side, they can't. Another thing to keep in mind as well is that if the horse 4 is blocked, they can actually armor through the 2 for some reason. I don't know why this is allowed, but if I set the dummy here to do an armor move, and I do the 2, then I can actually get armored through it, and you don't get a lot of reward for doing this 4. So a lot of the time it's actually just going to be better here to block, even though you're +8 if they're doing armor move a lot, because that's going to give you effectively the same punish, at least if they have a mid armor move, because all mid armor moves are punishable, and they are all at least -12, except for Kazuya's in heat. That's -9 for some reason. So blocking here is good, because then it's going to be able to give you at least 2-2 as a punish into another mix-up that's effectively doing the same thing as wolf 4 does. So just a little thing to keep in mind there. And then finally, let's talk about how Lidia plays, now that we've talked about a lot of the fundamentals. So Lidia feels a lot like a rushdown character. She seems like an aggressive rushdown character, but she doesn't really play that way, because as we've just seen, a lot of her options, even if you're super plus in her stances, which is her main way of rushing down the opponent, have a lot of counterplay to them, and that can get you killed. For example, if I do this into 1 and the opponent armors, the opponent can just armor through it, and now the opponent has the advantage despite you doing that forward 2 that was plus on block. If I do down back 3 here, even when I hit the opponent and I'm +7, it's the same thing. So we have to be very wary of that kind of stuff. If I do 1-2-2 here and I do 2, again, armor move goes through. And this is just one thing. This isn't thinking about jabbing, being able to float, let's say, the horse 3. This isn't taking into account like down jabs getting around things. You can duck the horse 1 and then launch Lidia for it. The 1+2 being -18, launch punishable while she's in horse. This move being launch punishable. So if you're being super aggressive with Lidia, the risk reward for doing these moves isn't really going to be in your favor. So you have to be very careful when throwing out these moves, and you have to gauge how the opponent is playing and have an understanding of how they play. So that means it's very important for Lidia to actually play neutral when you are playing her. There are times when you can be aggressive and you can hit the opponent, but you can't do that all the time. She's not a rushdown character. She is not big stance rushdown, like at least how it's looking like Heihachi's going to be. No. You can't do that with Lidia. You have to be a little bit more patient and feel how the opponent's going to play. So that might mean you might throw out like a forward 2 and then just block instead of doing anything in the stance, because maybe you don't know if the opponent's going to throw an arm move, jab, down jab, what have you. So waiting and getting that information is going to be better than just throwing out a move and then getting yourself killed. Same with stuff like horse 1, right? So a lot of people like to go horse 1 and then force a mix-up here. And sometimes that works, but an astute opponent is going to be able to option select these things. So if my opponent, like I said before, is seeing that you're doing this and they're simply doing, like in Lidia's case, let's just say 2-2, right? Because we've seen that as the go-to punish, even though I don't recommend doing this, but just for the sake of example, and I press this too, then they're just going to interrupt me, right? I do Hopkick and then block, they're just going to punish me. So we have to be aware of these things, and we have to be able to take a step back and read the game, read how the opponent's playing, get an idea for how they're playing, just play the fundamentals and neutral of the game, and then go from there. So if we see that the opponent is doing like some sort of high, like the 2-2, for example, a lot after forward 2, then that's going to open up stuff like the 1+2, right? That's where we're actually going to get our reward from, is playing patient and waiting to see what the opponent does, rather than just throwing out the 1+2 because it's a low. No, you're not throwing out the 1+2 because it's a low. You're throwing out the 1+2 because the opponent is doing a jab there, and the 1+2 is going to counter hit launch them and get you a big reward. Same with the 1, exact same situation, right? So say the opponent is doing like a jab, but we don't know if they're going to do that or sidestep, right? We can do this into the 2, right? And we're doing the 1 not to get our big plus frames and to do our armor move and yada yada yada, but instead we're doing it because, okay, we have a feeling based on how the opponent's been playing that they're going to do either some sort of jab, some sort of high string, some sort of fast high string to interrupt our stance, or they're going to sidestep, and I don't know what it is. So that's when we throw out the 1. And those are the kind of ideas that we have to have. And then, like, if we do down 4-2 here, if we know that, like, 4 is going to crush with a high that they're doing, then that's when we can throw out the 4, right? And then get our full combo, as we've shown before. But if we're just like, oh, I'm going to do down 4-2 into 1 for the mix-up. No, that's not how it works, right? So, again, very important to gauge the opponent, get an understanding, and play around them. Like, shift the momentum around on them. Use their aggression against them and deal damage to them for trying to take their turn, for trying to be aggressive. This also applies to how you play Lidia out here as well. This is going to be an awkward place for a lot of people to play Lidia, but because she doesn't have a lot of unfair tools to be able to just run in and take her turn on block. Like, you know, Yoshimitsu, for instance, running 3, puts him in Dragonfly, forces a frame trap, gets a free mix-up out of it in Dragonfly. Stuff like that, right? For Lidia, she doesn't have anything that's really like that out here. Instead, she has to let the opponent play their game, get a feel for how they're playing neutral, feel for the tendencies, how they want to play out at this range, and then punish them for it. So if you know that they're out at this range and you see them, like, for example, with their movement, let's say we see them like dash and then backdash and then run in, right? Let's say they do that. So let's make it so that we have them dash and then backdash and then running 1, right? If we notice the Lidia doing that in the movement patterns, like we can get a tell based on how that they've been moving that they're going to do something, then what we can do here, and this is a little bit more Tekken fundamentals, is we can say, okay, I know that they're going to want to do that based on how they've been playing before, so I can throw out Political Storm there. Oh, I hit them, I got the hit confirmed, so now I get the full thing and I go in the heat. So that's going to be the basic way that you play Lidia. How do you move in with Lidia from out here? Well, it's simple. It's not really simple, but a lot of what you're going to do is you're going to be using that threat of stuff like Political Storm, back 3-1, to be able to dissuade the opponent from just running in at you, and that's going to allow you to be able to go from out here to in here without having to even press a button. So a lot of the time, with pretty much every character in the game, they're going to want to press a button at that range to get in and force their turn. But because Lidia has the power to dissuade and scare the opponent from doing that, that actually gives you the opportunity to get in their face without having to do anything at all. And then when you're in this range, that's going to open up like the back 1s, the down back 3s, stuff like that. And then finally, I think I said finally before, but I forgot to talk about this. Finally, let's talk about heat. So when Lidia goes into heat, she becomes an absolute menace. And that's because of her little stack system here. Now, how does that work? So the way that the stack system works is when she has 0 stacks, she goes into heaven and earth. Then she will lose all of her heat when she has 0 stacks. When she has 1 stack, however, she takes less heat to be able to go into there. And then as soon as the heat runs out, now that we're at 2, she'll take even less to go in. And at 3, even less. And it goes up to 3. This is the main use of the stacks. Now, It does buff damage on a couple of moves like the unblockable in Heaven and Earth, down 1+2, stuff like that. But the main purpose is to be able to go in the Heaven and Earth multiple times. And that's going to allow you to be able to do stuff like what I have called Hammer Tech, which is going to look a little something like this. So after a heat engager here, we're gonna do this. We're gonna hold 1+2 and then have them block it, do 2 while running 1 in the 2 and then heat smash into 2, forcing a mix-up here, right? We have a mix-up after that, and we did about half of their health in chip damage because they decided to block all of that. Now, there are interrupt points in that sequence, but it just gives you an idea of how devastating Lidia can be while she's in heat. And all of these moves, by the way, if they actually hit the opponent, so let's just say the 1+2 here hits the opponent, then we're doing 76 damage. If the running 1 hits the opponent, then we're doing 73 damage. If the heat smash hits the opponent, then we're doing 55 damage. So that's the potential of Lidia in heat. And a lot of this comes from in Heaven and Earth, just doing Heaven and Earth 2. So what you're going to see here is when we do Heaven and Earth 2, this is going to do 17 damage on block. That's better than down 2. That's almost as good as her down back 3 hell sweep. It's a significant amount of damage for the opponent blocking it. And the other thing about this too is that you're +6. So this is going to give you access to your frame traps as well, down 4-2 and down back 3, which can also go into Heaven and Earth by pressing up. Another thing about Heaven and Earth 2 is that parry's on frame 5. So if you do a move like, let's say, down 4-2 and the opponent is trying to jab interrupt it because that would normally work, the 3 wouldn't be able to avoid it, you can go into Heaven and Earth and actually parry that jab and then get a mix-up from there. So it's not even fake to do that, as it might seem. You might think, oh, you can just jab interrupt it. No, you can't. Oh, but you can Hopkick interrupt it because it's an airborne move. No, Lidia parries everything besides lows there. So it just works. Now, there is one way that they can punish it, and that's grab. Because since it's a parry, grabs are guaranteed on parries, so grabs can interrupt that if the opponent has a read. But if they don't, then that's going to give you a lot. Now, again, the sequence that I showed does have a lot of gaps in it, but when you're starting out, it's a good flowchart to start on and to expand on as you play Lidia. And there have been countless numbers of people that have picked up Lidia, have used that flowchart and have gotten a lot of success out of it. So I really implore you to use it. Again, the flowchart at 3 stacks specifically is going to be doing back 1, and then 1+2 into 2, running 1 into 2, and then heat smash into 2, and then that's going to allow you for another mix-up. If you do like hell sweep, for example, then you're going to get another mix-up out of that, and the opponent's already almost in rage, and they just blocked all of that. That's going to be about it for the long-form beginner's guide on Lidia. I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that this is going to make it a little bit easier to pick up and learn Lidia. Again, I know this was a long guide, so as I said in the beginning, I implore you to use the timestamps, come back through the video at some point. If you have specific questions on anything, then go back in the timestamps of the video to specific sections. This is basically like 5 videos combined into one, so that it's much more easier and convenient for all of you who are trying to learn Lidia. And again, this is a lot of information to take in all at once, so I really don't recommend just trying to take it all in simultaneously. I really recommend just playing the character, getting a feel for her, see how she is. And if you have questions about specific situations that have come up while you're playing, then go back through and back into a timestamp and then look back at that section. And hopefully that's going to make it a little bit easier for you to learn the specific parts of the character that you're actually looking to learn. Anyway, I sincerely hope you found this video helpful. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section or stop by my Twitch stream. It's twitch.tv/Sesujin. I'm more than happy to answer questions. Plenty of people come in, ask questions about whether it's Tekken or Lidia specifically, or just a bunch of things. Please feel free to stop in there. We also do viewer games every week, so if you want to come in for viewer games as well. We're in a little bit of a transition period as well, where normally it's on Wednesdays, but we might be changing it to Saturday or Sunday, so I don't have an exact day for when we do that. But if you want to come in and do that as well, then please feel free to. And that's gonna about do it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you enjoy Lidia. Bye bye.